Oh, wow. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Colette Pierce Burnett, and I'm the president and CEO. I have the humbling honor to serve as the president and CEO of Newfields. And I want to welcome you to this conversation this morning, a facilitated discussion, because it's really one of those moments in the life of Newfields that's a turning point. So I want to ask us, first of all, to have a moment of silence for Mr. Tyree Nichols and all those who have lost their lives to the hands of a brutal murder. So if I could ask you to join me, please, in just a moment of silence and reflection. Thank you. So I am going to be introducing Maggie Orden, who will start our conversation for today. But before that, I just want to share a personal reflection and why I know that this is a moment, a turning point, a crucial moment in Newfield's history. And that's because I had the opportunity to tour the second floor, the galleries that are being refreshed. And the magnitude of the construction that's going on there is a reflection of the magnitude of the conversation, because it's intense. And there are a lot of engaged people that are working behind the scenes to bring this to the Indianapolis community and beyond. And in addition to that, this partnership that we have formed with the Looking Glass Alliance is super important to me on a personal level, because I'm leading the institution, leaning forward into partnerships, and for us to be able to learn, for us to be able to listen and learn, and to be able to grow and expand. And there's an African proverb that says, if you want to go far, go alone. If you want to go fast, go together. And us going together with the Looking Glass Alliance is going to help us to go even farther. And this is not a moment, it's a movement in who Newfields is and how we show up in being a best-in-class cultural institution for all of our guests. So thank you for being here. And with that, I'm going to bring on Maggie Orden. Maggie is just fantastic, and she's really been very courageous in making this happen. Maggie?
Thank you, Dr. Burnett, for introducing this event, and thank you to all of you for being here. So, as the Newfields staff and Looking Glass Alliance members get settled, I'll just tell you a little bit about the project as a frame of reference. So I'm Maggie Orden. I'm one of the interpretation planners that worked on the updates to the American art galleries. And I'll just share a little bit about the project. So as Dr. Burnett may have mentioned, Newfields is working on plans to reimagine all the galleries that feature the IMA's permanent collections. And as one of the first steps in this process, we're refreshing the galleries that feature American art, specifically art from the United States. And this is an update that will be on display for several years. And our goal is to learn from these updates to inform future reinstallations of both these galleries and the other galleries in the museum. And one of our guides for this process is to think about what the IMA can be as part of Newfields. So, as the International Council of Museum defines museums, and their full definition is seen here, and it was recently updated, Newfields and the IMA is striving to be accessible and inclusive, to foster diversity, to operate and communicate with the participation of communities, and offer experiences for education, enjoyment, and reflection. And some of the more specific goals for this refresh is to build community and relationships. And so I'm really excited that we have this opportunity to hear directly from the Looking Glass Alliance members today, to tell inclusive stories in new ways, and some of that is thematic interpretations of the American art collection, to foster dialogues between art, people and each other, and then to really center people and their experiences with art, and then since we're also part of the Newfields campus, with nature as a whole and the land that the country that we now know of as the United States of America is on. So, as I mentioned, this is a first step in this process. And this exhibition will pose questions about how historic American art connects to ongoing debates about the country. But the purpose of this reinstallation is not to settle any of those debates or to give answers to questions about what America is or isn't. It's really, we're hoping it's an invitation for guests like you and others to explore ideas about America and a chance to share stories that aren't always visible in historic American art. And sharing these new stories means changing how we work and whose voices are included in the museum. And we worked with 5 Indianapolis area residents who are all here today and who have collectively called themselves the Looking Glass Alliance. And we worked with them to really look at American art in new ways, to reveal stories that have always been there, but weren't always seen by everyone. And to tell these stories, Newfields staff, myself and my 2 colleagues on the stage, reached out to a variety of members of the Indianapolis community. We reached out to artists, visual artists, musicians, writers, poets, historians, whose work we thought connected with the themes that the artwork was exploring in these galleries. And we wanted to keep this group small so Newfields staff could really work on building new relationships and also strengthen emergent relationships. And another part of keeping the group small was so we wanted each of these participants to have a prominent presence in the galleries. And we hope you see that when the galleries are refreshed and open again in the spring. And now I am really excited to invite the Looking Glass Alliance participants and my colleagues to introduce themselves. So I was wondering if you could all just go around and take a moment to share your name and a little bit about the work that you do.
I'll go ahead and jump it off. My name is Bobby Young. I'm a songwriter, musician, performer. I've got a band here in the city, Native Son. Maybe some of you all have heard of some of the work that we've done. During the day, I'm also a learning specialist for USAA. And, for me, as far as this project is concerned, I think it was just a unique opportunity to, as Maggie kind of mentioned, move things forward and kind of push the conversation. And so I'm really just happy to be a part of this collective.
Hi, my name's Nasreen. King, would you mind switching seats with me? I'm getting a very 1950s, like, little ladies on the couch situation.
I thought the same thing.
And it's deeply uncomfortable. Thank you so much. Thank you, King. My name's Nasreen Khan. I started as an English professor, and now I work for All Souls Unitarian Church doing community programming, and then the second half of my life is artistic work. And that artistic work is mostly wood burning, so connecting deeply with local ecology, wood, and urban ecosystems.
Jordan Ryan, I'm an architectural historian. My background's in art history, theory, and criticism. I was really lost and disillusioned in the art world, and I was dating a graffiti artist. He's dead, so I guess I can say his name, Q from TCB. And we would essentially break into old buildings and fire escapes, and I could see buildings and city planning and things kind of in a different way that I'd ever seen before, and that was when I became an architectural historian. So I've spent years working in historic preservation and in architectural archives, and now I run my own consulting firm called The History Concierge.
Hi, everyone. My name is Tatiana Rebel. I am a spoken word artist. I founded and curated Vocab Indie, which was a cultural art space based off of spoken word in Indianapolis for 13 years. I have now passed it on to other people for that legacy to continue. I have had much history in Indianapolis as being a person that's truthfully honest to my core. I believe in disrupting systems and do everything I can to uplift the voice of those that aren't heard and often ignored. Are we getting into why we did this yet, or are we doing that later?
We can save that.
Okay, we're going to save that for a second, but I'll leave it there for that. During the day, my day job, I am the Director of Equitable Initiatives with Earth Charter Indiana, which is a nonprofit that works to fight climate change.
Hello, everyone. I'm King Rhodes, member of the 18 Art Collective, who has a exhibition going on right now, We the Culture. Now member of the Looking Glass Alliance. I am a visual artist, graphic designer by degree, and yeah, that's pretty much it.
All right, and then Michael and Natasha.
Hi, I'm Tasha Horowitz. I'm the Director of Interpretation, Media, Publishing, and Experiential Design at Newfield. Sorry, it's a ridiculously long title. Doesn't really tell you what I do. I work with leadership and curatorial to really think through the vision and the strategy for what goes in our galleries. I also work directly on certain projects, this one is a great example, to help figure out what is the story that we want to tell and how we want to tell it. In the past few years, my work has also transitioned a lot to include working with local artists and community partners, which I love. It's a huge part of what I'm doing these days. And then sometimes I kind of drift into a curatorial role as well. I've curated a few projects here. Most recently, I was very lucky to be one of the 4 curators on We the Culture, so I worked with King on that project.
Hi, I'm Michael Vetter. I'm the Assistant Curator of Contemporary Art and the Interim Curator of American Art. I have a PhD in Contemporary Art History, but my background originally in grad school was in American art, historical American art, and interwar period modernism. So it was a great opportunity to be able to step in for this project and to kind of go back to that material that I studied so long ago. So yeah, happy to be here.
Thank you so much, everyone, for sharing a little bit about yourselves. So just to give a sense of what's going to happen today, I have a few questions for the LGA, and I'll probably use that acronym throughout the day, and Newfield staff. And then after we do that for a little while, I'd love to open the floor to questions from the audience. But to get started, Tatiana, maybe you would want to take this first one about, we'd love to hear from you about why you decided to work with Newfields on this project and why you thought it was important and worth doing.
I feel like I opened myself up for that one. Okay, there's 3 reasons why I took on this project. One, for personal reasons, as a spoken word artist and a writer. I could not negate the fact that written work could become a part of an art exhibit. And that incorporation of written word with visual art, I think, is something that was an opportunity that I could not let go of. The human in me wanted to believe that they could change. I like to believe that people have the opportunity to actually grow from their mistakes. This group, though, I will say, were the reason why I decided to actually go through with it, because of the camaraderie of how we all felt about the organization. On a petty level, I wanted to be present for when they messed up, honestly. I wanted to be able to be in the room, to hear the conversations, to actually see what was happening, what the story was behind, what it felt like to be a part of the process, because I also wanted to make sure that I would be able to be honest about it from my own experience. So it's kind of like a multi-layer reason why I was involved in the project and am involved in the project.
Well, I'm going to start off on a petty note. I was here, or we were beginning to do what was going to be the first exhibition of the 18 Art Collective, which was titled Drip. And that's when the really cool job posting came out about maintaining Newfield's core white audience. So I'm here to make artwork for those people because there are stories that have been omitted from the collection that need to be experienced by the core white audience. So that's my main reason for being here.
I was interested in the intersections of place and space, not to critique any curators in this room or who've ever curated here, but there are a lot of interpretation panels that really focus on the artist's life and education, and I don't know if that's always like the best gateway into the content. And so I was looking at a lot of pieces that are based in Indianapolis, and they're landscapes and streets that we all know, a lot of us have probably walked. And why not kind of pick at that? So like in my day-to-day work as an architectural historian and researcher, I tend to be looking at sort of these layers of federal, national, state, municipal policies and planning and housing that get us into the mess we're in today. And I saw this as an opportunity to kind of highlight some local site-specific examples. And yeah, I was cautious and curious as well when we got the invitation, but I do hope that this is a chance for an audience to experience artwork and think about places that they know and maybe appreciate even more and think about how artists may have experienced them 100, 150 years ago.
Yeah, I think for myself, my relationship with the museum goes back a bit. I originally worked for the Indianapolis Museum of Art while I was still in high school. And it was a summer program after my sophomore and junior years, I think. It was called Community Connections. And essentially, each year we chose a different country that we were going to talk about, and we'd go to different community centers, YMCAs, senior citizens' homes, all around really the state. We would travel even outside of Indianapolis and give speeches, and the museum would loan us different artifacts to kind of add to that conversation. I also lived in the area. I lived right here off of 38th and Cold Spring for a number of years. Lived right off of 51st in Michigan. My first job was right down at Highland Golf and Country Club, and I was like 12. I was a caddy. And so my relationship or my understanding of the museum, it kind of differed as I got older. Once I became an adult, I even lived right off of 36th Meridian, still right here in this neighborhood, understanding what the neighborhood is about and what Newfields, the museum itself could just bring. And I think for me, I wanted it to be more than just a place that we go and a place that we visit as just any other business, and more of a resource. And that's what it felt like when I was younger, when I was a kid, when I had that group. And it was a mixed group of different people from different walks of life, from all different parts of Indianapolis, that came together under the guise of just educating. And so as I became an adult, one of the jobs that I had, I was a case manager for individuals with developmental disabilities. And some of them I would even bring to the grounds here to kind of enjoy and just kind of, because there's a lot of great sensory sort of things here on these grounds. So overall, I don't want to be too long-winded about it, but overall, my goal and my hope is that not only can we find ways to move forward, but we can make this place, once again, a resource for the community, and make it a place that when you come here and when you visit, it's a reflection of what you see in this area.
I think when I was a writing teacher, the hardest thing to teach students was to read what was not there. You can call it reading between the lines or interpretation, but certainly in poetry and literature, the hardest thing to teach freshmen, readers, writers, is it doesn't matter what's on the page, it matters very much what is not on the page. And so I'm continually interested in voids, in absence, in silence. And my home here in Indianapolis is a neighborhood that means a lot to me. I live in Hawville, and people are either uniquely familiar with Hawville or entirely unfamiliar with Hawville. And it's a space, like Jordan, I'm deeply influenced and inspired by place and space. And so the neighborhood, in some ways, is the inspiration for my desire to work on this project. I wanted to do what I did as a professor and read what was not there. And so this was a unique opportunity to look around the galleries and say, who isn't here? What artists aren't here? and I was very grateful to be able to talk about immigration and art. I grew up in West Africa, in Senegal, and then moved to Indonesia and came to the United States for college, and I'm still in the green card process 10 years later, despite buying a home and getting a graduate degree and having an American child. So it's all of that is tied up with my artistic practice. And it's not, I just want to drive home, I guess, that art isn't pictures on the wall. It is a societal archive of our collective lived experiences. And so if we look at that societal collective archive of our lived experiences and people are missing, that tells us a lot.
Thank you so much. Yeah. It was really wonderful to hear you all talk about that. I mean, it really reminds us like why we're doing this work. So thank you for being here. So as part of this process, we invited everyone to look at the artwork that was going to be on display and to come up with contributions that would be a part of the gallery. So I was wondering if each of you could talk a little bit about one piece of artwork that you were drawn to and why. And then I do have pictures of some of the artworks in the galleries on the slide, so if you talk about that one, I'll pull it up so folks can see what you're talking about.
Is it in an order?
You don't have to go in order. I can page through to find the ones you're talking about.
Can I just, this one that you already have up actually is
I'll pull
one of
up
the
a
artists that
larger
I covered.
Here. It's a little larger
Right.
now.
So, I really liked just this piece of art in itself because I think it really kind of has a sort of vibe and a sort of mood to it. But as I got to know more about William Edward Scott in terms of just the person, I think it inspired me even more. I think that a lot of times when we consider black art, we consider it to be something that's politically driven. It's got to have a certain sort of message to it. And I think he was one of the artists that really kind of rejected that and was like, hey, other people's art isn't judged in the same sort of fashion. Why isn't it just art? And we just say, hey, either you like it or you don't. Why does it have to be put into a certain sort of category? And because I am a black man, why does it have to be black art? And all of a sudden now it's got this sort of connotation to it instead of, this is just a abstract art, or this is, shapes and just that sort of thing. So I think for me, I was really inspired by somebody that was trying to reject the narrative that all black art had to be in the same sort of vein, and wanted to just show that, this is not, it's not some sort of monolith where it's just one sort of thing. It's a spectrum, art in and of itself, and that's how it should be looked at and enjoyed.
I guess I'll go next. I'm always like, somebody else talk first. The piece that I fought the hardest for was Hauptmann Must Die. And the story behind this was based off of the kidnapping and murder of the family that did the, I'm so bad with names. I'm looking at the historian. Thank you. The Lindbergh baby. And what really kind of gravitated to me for this one, right? It's the name of this is Hauptmann Must Die, and it's referred to as the crime of the century. And that crime being the kidnapping of a baby, and had nothing to do with the genocide of indigenous people or slavery. So I felt very gravitated to this piece. The interesting part for me is I have built my entire career and life on calling out white supremacy. And I have been doing everything in my soul and spirit to focus on what joy and the Black experience could look like. So I decided to take this to also bring it to a local level. And the piece that I created for this tells the story of George Tompkins, who was a young man that was lynched at Riverside Park. And because I wanted to take everything to a very, if we're going to talk about crime and we're going to talk about the reality of what the institution of the United States is, right? And if we're going to talk about create a whole piece that's about one specific child, why not we also talk about the child of a family that actually was impacted here in Indianapolis, and it was very important. So the piece that I created for this is from his grandmother's perspective, who's the woman that raised him, to talk about what true crime looks like. And really my goal for all the work that I'm creating is to be able to bring the humanity of not just the white experience, or the core white audience experience, but to really bring the humanness of all the folk that have lived here and the experiences that happen with it. So this is the one I fought the hardest for of the 3 pieces that I curated, because that's my new goal is to bring the humanity to people.
Mm-hmm.
So I chose the painting Little Brown Girl for 2 reasons. One of them, I went the exact opposite route of Bobby, which was it's just a painting of a little brown girl. And for some reason, I was drawn to it, maybe visually. But when I looked at the painting and I thought about the project, I'm asked to respond. So how do I respond to this painting? What is she looking at? And then I thought about myself, and so I am creating a response painting that will be titled Big White System. Because as a little brown girl, she will have to face this system once she comes of age, and as a little brown boy, I once had to. So it's going to be a slither of the uncomfortableness that Black Americans have felt in this country for the core white audience to watch or view my painting next to this one, because some people would look and be like, why would he paint such, and trust me, the painting is gonna be hard to look at, trust me. It was hard to paint, but it's the truth that's been omitted. We can put stories of how Columbus discovered America in the galleries, but we can't put paintings of what he did once he got there. That's not telling the whole story. So with Little Brown Girl, I just really wanted to, and her face expression too, she doesn't look pleased. She's just sitting there in the shrubbery, and it's going to be a very good, difference between the paintings when you look at them. It's going to be like, why do you put such a big, like, overbearing, very gruesome painting next to a painting of just a little brown girl? But really, that's not a question for me. It's a question for America, because the events that I'm painting were not asked to be done to Black Americans. They just happened. So I'm just painting the stories that were left out of the galleries.
So as Maggie puts up, a blank slide. I want to start my explanation, I guess, with a thank you to the Newfield staff, and particularly Maggie, who has fielded dozens of emails and meetings and Zoom calls from me asking for just everything. I wanted to know how many immigrants were employed in your cleaning staff. I wanted to know about acquisitions. I wanted to know who's making those decisions. I wanted to know, is there a PDF you can give me about how these decisions are made? And also, how do I get in on making those decisions? And so a big thank you to the staff, because I have asked for everything under the moon, and they have done their best to give it to me. And all of these inquiries were really getting at one thing, which is, what is the place of immigrants, not just in Newfields, but in the arts in general? Because I come from a very traditional Asian-ish family. Sometimes people ask me, are you Black? And I say, kinda. And then they say, are you Asian? And I say, also kind of. And then they say, are you Arabic? And I say, kind of. So my father's half Afghan, half Russian. My mom's Black, Chinese, Filipino, and Spanish. And I grew up in none of those countries. And now I live in the hood in Indianapolis. So that's a really fun story to tell on dating apps. It's not. But anyways, the blank canvas really is about absence. A traditional Asian family tells you, go to college, become a doctor, become a lawyer, and if you can't, marry a doctor or lawyer. And keep your head down. That is the main thing that immigrant parents tell you. Keep your head down, don't make trouble. And I think that's really universal to the immigrant experience. Keep your head down, don't make trouble. And the explicit instruction there is don't be noticed. And I think that was necessary for many waves of immigration, and also I think it is toxic and it needs to change, because especially for immigrant women, that narrative of silence, of absence, of trying to make yourself as small as possible means that everything excellent about you, everything excellent about your sisters, your brothers, your family, gets missed. And so Maggie has a blank screen up here because I couldn't find art in Newfield's collection by non-white immigrants to respond to. And so my exhibit, or my contribution to our collective exhibit, doesn't have pieces to respond to. We're starting from scratch, much like immigrants do when they move to a new country.
Could you turn to the Richardson painting?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I really didn't know which one to talk about, so this is a game time decision. So this was a good example of how so many sort of facets of my spatial equity and sort of built environment research I could tell a lot of stories from this painting. This is from the north side of the city, and there were stories about redlining and suburbanization and white flight, but I got really obsessed with how we sort of miss things that happen in local government, because I'm a big planning nerd. And a few years ago, we overturned a streetlight moratorium. We weren't allowed to put up new streetlights for 35 years, and we have this gorgeous streetlight scene here. And I thought, why don't we talk about all of the ways that we harm pedestrians specifically, but in terms of mobility and safety, because we had this silly streetlight moratorium. And now that it's overturned and we can add more streetlights, what does this tell us about neighborhood change and this sort of disinvestment, investment binary that we talk about in spatial equity?
Thank you. I'm really excited to see these all in the galleries and come together. So this is just a little teaser, so please come back in April. And I just wanted to shift gears just a little for a moment, and I just wanted to hear a little bit from Michael and Tasha, because this really is a relationship and collaboration. And so since Michael and Tasha are here, would you mind taking a moment to share anything about this project that surprised you or you found challenging?
Sure. Challenging. I feel like I could talk for a while. I think some of the things that were challenging about this project could be broadly applied to a lot of things that I'm working on currently or have been working on. And I think, Newfields is a large institution, and sometimes we get in our own way, even with things that we believe in and we are committed to. So, we are art people. We love our processes. Processes are there for a reason, but processes also make things harder. They make change more difficult. They don't always keep up with the way groups of people work. And on a personal level, when I'm working on a project like this, I guess I should back up. For me, people and relationships are at the heart of what I do. Art, of course, is there, but people and relationships are on equal footing. And when I reach out to someone, when I ask someone to trust us and kind of, participate, go on this journey with us, to me, that that's my responsibility from that moment forward. And those moments where the institution can be in misalignment, or even if it thinks it's in alignment, but it's getting in its own way, those can be some of the most challenging moments, and I think we definitely felt that along this project. I think, you know, we've talked about the job description already. I think it's important, too, to think about the timing of this project. I've been on this since the beginning, so it's been about 3 years, so it sort of predated some of that, but it changed drastically. And in some ways, it made the development of this project much more difficult. We were an institution in crisis. We were trying to figure out who we were, what we wanted to be, what the future looked like. I think it's safe to say we were pretty risk-averse in many ways. But at the same time, it also provided some opportunities, because I think the project team got to fly under the radar a little bit because there were other things going on, until the institution was really ready to embrace this project. And we couldn't have waited till that moment to start working on this. This project had to keep moving, but it's been really amazing for me, especially with Dr. Burnett being here now, to see the institution kind of catch up to the project and be ready to really embrace it and support it. So those are challenges, and also kind of ending on a more positive note. I think the timing is perfect.
I'll kind of piggyback off that. Obviously, there are a lot of bureaucratic kind of hurdles and challenges to a project like this. You know, this is something that's been happening at other museums around the country, of bringing in community members to provide contributions to exhibitions, but it's very new for this institution. So was apprehensive, I guess I would say, about how it might turn out. From the kind of scholarly background of American art, there's already been a lot of work on issues, you know, around race and gender, and kind of bringing that into the world of academia, and it's, you know, at this point, it's not particularly controversial in that world, but knowing that the museum is a much different place, and that, you know, there has already been negative reactions to some of the things that were done in the American galleries even before they closed for this exhibition. So I was apprehensive both about the reception that my own contributions would kind of make to this exhibition, as well as the contributions from the Looking Glass Alliance, because I was worried that there would be resistance or pushback from the institution in terms of the kind of edginess, for lack of a better term, of what we were allowed to put in the galleries. But that all leads up to the surprise, which was actually that the museum, I thought, was very receptive about that, and it didn't end up being the kind of battle or gauntlet that I was maybe anticipating to get this kind of contribution into the exhibition. So that actually was a nice, lovely surprise.
Thanks, Michael and Tasha. Michael, can I borrow your microphone so I can walk around and take questions from the audience?
Sure.
All right, so I'll walk around and hand you the microphone so everyone in the audience can hear you. Let me walk down these stairs in the dark. All right, does anybody have a question? Yes.
Thank you. When I first became retired and became a member of the museum, I did a lot of reading. And at one time, the Indianapolis Museum of Art was one of the leaders, if not at the top of with involvement with the online audience. You know, you could set your own collection and tag pictures instead of having to say, you could write comments and just, I don't, but it sounded so wonderful to be able to talk among us online audience about this art and like the stories I know about that, and just to share these things online. Since coming here, my favorite part of the museum and what keeps me a member is the looking, a closer look. Because you go there with a skilled docent who pulls out, and we have all these wonderful discussions among the people, and I find out how much I knew or didn't know, and it's just such a beautiful thing. In fact, my peak experience for ever being here was when we had the Colescott huge masterpiece, where the Indianapolis downtown used to be, And wow, what that drew out of the people. But see, no, only were like 20 of us there maybe. It was just such a peak experience. So along with the unheard voices, I'm thinking I wish we could pull in the online voices as well. Because I mean, at least me, I like to look at all of the art and all the pictures in the collection. Half of the ones I love the most have never been shown, as far as I know. But it just would be so wonderful to be able to talk to other people about art and have a platform to do that. And what you're talking about, I think if we have these things, it just cries for being able to capture how we do feel in these things and what it does for us and what it makes us think. And I think we'll lose that if that's not captured somehow. But that's my thought.
Did anyone on the panel have responses to that? And thank you for sharing those powerful experiences that you do have with the art in the galleries.
Yeah, I would say just to kind of respond to that, I think building that community is important. And I think that conversations among other art lovers and just casual viewers is important. My particular contribution to this is a interactive digital tool. And essentially it highlights a lot of African-American artists who are originally from Indianapolis, who their story really hasn't been told. And they lived right here in the same community that we all know and love. And so it's shedding more light on their art as well as who they are as people, and it'll be like a big digital tool that you can touch, and hopefully it's something that young people are inspired by. But one of the other things that is a part of the tool is there is like a message board, if you will, where people can kind of leave comments and things like that about things that they would like to see in the gallery. And one of the things that I'm kind of going back and forth with the museum about, and I'm really passionate about this piece of it, is I want to hold Newfields accountable to actively engage these individuals who are looking for more artwork of this type. And I want them to, send out at least, maybe a quarterly sort of newsletter, something like that, to let people know, hey, this is important, this is something we are supporting, but beyond that, build that community of individuals who are interested in that sort of thing.
And I'll just say quickly, we are definitely starting to move towards a much more robust online presence for our projects. This project in particular will have versions of all the contributions online, as well as deeper dives that perhaps, I'm thinking Jordan specifically, are just too long, too much to put in the galleries, but we really wanted to make it available to everyone. So those will all be available online.
And the primary sources, so everything I reference, any sort of map, aerial photograph, archival material, public history database, all that's available online. So we can start kind of cross-referencing everything too.
If anyone else has a question, okay.
I just want to piggyback on what this gentleman said, because I've done a closer look, and that's one of the best things this museum does. I'm retired, so I can do it during the day. You talk about your core white audience. If you all could hook that up with this new gallery and provide that kind of in-person thing, you'll reach your core white audience and help that explanation, that conversation about the juxtaposition of these artworks. That's a valuable thing. I know you want to do stuff online and everything like that, but there's nothing like, I missed it since the pandemic hit. I really, really miss being able to come and do that. And it was offered on Saturday, and it was offered on Tuesday. It was offered twice a month. And for me, one thing I can definitely remember, there was a piece of artwork in here, I don't even know the name. It's very famous. I hated it. And it turns out why I hated it was the frame. To see that closer up, it gave me a different appreciation. But being able to interact with people, you guys, the artists, people, is what you all need to do. I hope you do.
I can offer that we're also, that applause was for you. Can I get that? Is that applause for me? No, I'm just joking. I can also offer that we're also reimagining our docent program that's in process, and we're about to launch that. I'm very, very excited about that as well. And that is a part of the docent program, what we hope to I'll take the hope out, what we are going to do. So that's something that's a part of the renaissance of Newfields. Oh, somebody tried to give me an applause. Thank you.
All right, I think I saw your hand first, and then I think I saw yours.
Hi, what is giving you hope today, whether it be at Newfields or out in your neighborhoods, or what's giving you hope?
I'm honestly going to say being in this group with these 5 people. Also, the We the Culture collective here. I'm going to speak specifically about Newfields, right? Meeting this group of people and having us be together on this project was like, okay, I see y'all. And then being able to see the exhibit that was created for the 18 Collective. And to me, that's one of the best exhibits that's been in this museum for a very long time. That was that moment of like, okay, and kind of what Michael was talking about as well. Like when I had proposed to do my first piece, the Hopman Must Die one, my goal was actually to get it rejected by the board. I push. I will find that button and I will push it until somebody cries or somehow, you know what I mean? Like that's what I do. And there was no pushback. And I was like, okay, so there's this movement that's starting to happen, this slow move, Dr. Burnett coming in, like all these things. It's like, okay, this actually could possibly get to a space that we want it to. But I think everything's kind of just like an incremental step. I'm still not fully there. I don't think any one of us are in this room fully there yet. I'm sure Dr. Burnett is, but maybe she's not. I'm not gonna speak for her. But I think every time that I'm like in space with like the people that work here and that kind of stuff, there's this little moment like, oh, okay, I see you. That's great. And like hopefully we can keep it moving. So.
I really enjoy that question. I think that one of the things that has been most frustrating to me since moving to the United States is sort of this like nationwide anesthetization of the nation, where nothing is a big deal and everything has to be polite and emotion is flatlined. And I see quite a few of my friends in the audience, and so they can vouch for the fact that I don't do small talk. I will get bored and walk away, or I will ask you about your childhood trauma, one or the other. So I think that's giving me hope, is that there's a lot of people, more people than I expected in this audience that care. I thought there would be 10 people in this audience. I did not think anyone cared about the exhibit or what we were doing or what might happen. And so that's very hopeful that people care, not just about the art, but about what it represents and the stories. And yeah, sorry, I got emotional and then forgot English.
I can be emotional too, real quick. Seeing you all here is giving me a lot of hope. I was very unceremoniously laid off during COVID and had to start a business from scratch, kind of kicking and screaming to make my way through this with no resources, and to just feel that people care and respect, and we can collaborate and we build on each other's expertise, and to see you all here gives me a lot of confidence and hope. So thank you for being here.
What's giving me hope was when I first described the painting, the response that I was doing to Little Brown Girl, I expected them to be like, we can't put that in a museum. There's no way. Like, people, even though knowing as an artist what art is meant to do, it makes people feel uncomfortable. And I had to go there with this painting, or I'd be doing a disservice. I might as well not even respond to it if I don't paint what I'm painting. But them allowing that to go into the galleries and it just being like a thumbs up right off the bat, that gave me hope.
Yeah, just to piggyback off of that, I think, as Jordan said, just seeing you all here, all of you, come from different walks of life, got different things going on, but you still made it a point to come out, and it was important to you. And so I think as we continue to build this thing, the hope is that, we get the same sort of response, that you all come out and check out what we've done and give us commentary and feedback in terms of different things that you want to see in this gallery. As I mentioned before, for me, it's all about community. And if we don't have that, and if we don't really invoke that, if this institution isn't a reflection of that, then I think, there's a disconnect there. And I think that this is a big opportunity for us to kind of bridge that gap and work towards being a place where everybody feels comfortable, everybody feels welcome, everybody feels part of a shared community.
Hi, I will do my best to be concise. All right, so things that jumped out at me: the word healing, and a kind of tough love for what this institution has been over time and how it works with the community. So my question for the artists, what challenges did you meet? And what accountability would you like to be able to hold this institution to for that healing to happen over time? And then my question for the IMA staff in the room, hearing those responses, what challenges do you think that kind of accountability would meet, and what can you do to shift that?
I think that the biggest piece of our early struggle came straight up in terms of our contracts. And so this project was supposed to start a little bit earlier than it did. And if I'm being very frank, some of us on the panel here had deep qualms about signing our contracts because there was a non-disclosure clause, non-disclosure agreement in one of the clauses. And so Tatiana, Jordan, and myself had a pretty active Facebook Messenger chat in which we, essentially said no. As women, and then also women of color, for Tatiana and I, keeping control over our own narrative was really, really important. And so I won't get into all of the messy details, but I will say that, did my mic go silent? I will say that, it's no longer there. Like, Newfields removed the non-disclosure agreement, which kind of doesn't feel like a win, because I don't think that it was really a fight. I think that everyone was just growing. Because the thing that I've learned the most out of this project is that it's not us versus the big bad institution. It is lots of people like Maggie and Tasha and Michael and King and Tatiana and Jordan and myself and Bobby, all trying to use art to make sense of things that are scary. And so there isn't a non-disclosure agreement anymore, but it was a struggle on both sides to just say, we're scared of pushback. We're scared of not having our control over our narrative, and coming to meet in the middle and say, okay, how do we be humans together?
I didn't have any difficulties personally myself with the museum. My difficulties came with my responses because I'm painting Black people in very vulnerable positions, but that's the story that Black people have been dealt. The story of the Black person in America is a horror story that's actually real. And when asked to respond to these paintings, that's what I get to draw from. That's where I'm referencing is real life. And the paintings that I'm making are just as much relevant when the original paintings were created as my responses are relevant today. So that was the difficulty out of the project for me.
One of my biggest struggles was an internal struggle of putting myself on the line for Newfields, right? The concern of tokenism, the concern of I have built my, I won't say reputation, but I'll say reputation of being a person that is straightforward and out there. And the biggest struggle for me was, am I going to allow myself to be vulnerable and put in a position by this institution to be used in a way that I don't feel okay with? And trusting that they actually might come through and do what is correct. That was one of the biggest struggles, and that's part of the reason why when the NDA and the contract and all that was happening, it was like, y'all use this red flags coming up right here, and is this something that I'm willing to do for my art? This is an institution that I'm willing to put my name on the line for, and a way for me to be able to get my work out there on a grander scale. I'm glad that I've done it now. I really believe in the work that we're doing, and I honestly believe that this could be a really large entry point into how the museum navigates, right? If they're able to kind of do what they have done with us as a group, to do that for the museum as a whole, I think they will be able to do wonderful things. So that's my goal now, is to be able to have us be the entry point to this being something on a larger scale. But that biggest struggle for me was, am I willing to even do this? And, you know, money only can do so much, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think I really haven't had too many struggles in doing this thus far, but coming into it, I didn't want the museum to have an attitude of, if we build it, they will come. Because I don't know, in my heart of hearts, I don't feel like that's realistic, especially for individuals that look like myself, who may have been offended by previous things that have happened here. So we're going to need to actively engage these people, right? We're going to need to find some sort of commonality, for a reason for you to come back to Newfields, or if you've never been to before, why would you do that? And so that's why I was explaining earlier, as far as the digital tool that you know, I've had a hand in creating here. I want it to be something that actively engages people, that you feel like you're a part of that community, that makes you want to come back. And as you're giving suggestions on things that you want to see, you're getting responses. And the museum is you know, slowly but surely implementing some of those things. And the underlying agreement is that if it comes here, then you'll come and visit, and you'll you know, basically be able to enjoy that. Another thing I wanted to just kind of point out. Tatiana was a big reason why I even joined this, and we didn't even have a conversation. But I remember when they sent out an email regarding the names, and I was like, they got Tatiana in there? They're not playing. Do they know who they just hired? You know, and so that was big for me. And another thing I wanted to touch on is King's piece, which is going to be incredible and very, very powerful. You know, I thought about it as he was saying that, in terms of the museum just giving him the latitude to just be able to just create, right? No matter what it looked like, or what sort of feelings or emotions it evoked. You know, for a second, when you think about it, we've, in our society, become so desensitized, right, to certain things. So we would come into this museum and somebody could possibly be offended, or this is too much. But yet and still, you know, we've got a video circulating right now of a young man who lost his life at the hands of law enforcement, that we just, you know, that's just kind of the norm, right? But it shouldn't be. And we need to find ways to, you know, bring it back to humanality, you know, just basic treating one another with respect and with kindness and with love. And the hope is that, as Tatiana and others have said, that this is the start of something along that vein.
Back to your question, and to go back to what Nazreen was saying, I'm just going to say it because I'm a recovering museum employee, but we have to get our boards in check. So we have a lot of non-accountability, for board members, and there's an expectation that boards are here to raise money and to help, and when you start micromanaging staff and controlling the narrative, that's a really dangerous place. And there's so much trauma with museum staff in this room and with people we know. And I see this as a chance to show, at least the Newfields board, look what you can do when you give trust back to your staff to do what they want to do. And when you trust the community, look at this project you can put together. We just have to open these communication channels, but we need accountability for our boards.
And I just want to touch briefly upon, you know, from the Newfield side, we have to completely rethink the way that we work. It isn't our role to tell you what we know or to just disseminate knowledge. You know, we need to come into these projects humbly, asking questions, listening, willing to pause and slow down, which is not easy for us because we tend to move really quickly, but I think that's when a lot of mistakes can happen. So it's really about shifting in many ways, the curatorial practice, the interpretive approach, and just really the way we structure these types of projects in general. Because when we do that, I mean, look what we can create. It's just so much more meaningful.
Sorry, I know I already answered a little bit. I think that you were talking about healing and change, and I think that the biggest struggle for me, kind of what Tatiana was talking about, was not just the non-disclosure agreement, but thinking through my role as an artist. And so, like, I think a lot of times there's pressure on artists to be like anti-establishment, and we don't take money from people we don't agree with, but like I got a 7-year-old who likes to eat, so I got to make money somehow. And that was a big struggle for me, was how do we enter into this thing equitably? And that has been the most rewarding part of this process, is because there isn't a lot of talk about equity in art spaces. And I don't mean racial equity, because there is a lot of like DEI stuff everywhere, but I mean equity in, is there a power dynamic, and when can we talk about it? And so, one of my first meetings with Maggie was, okay, look, your contract is very generous in your hourly wage, but I can't even afford to bring my child here. Can you throw in a family membership? Because I can't afford it. I'm a single mom in the hood. Can you make professional development opportunities available to us? Can you introduce us to other curators and staff so we can build professional networks? Because as me, living in my body, who I am, that is the hardest part, is access. And so it's been very gratifying to have conversations about not just pay us fairly, but engage with us in true relationship. And I think a lot of that comes down to Newfields as an institution making a decision about their role in the community. Are they an art museum that serves the public? Are they an art museum that does public programming? Are they a housing warehouse for valuable works of art that donors can come see? I don't know. I'm not Newfields.
I actually feel like,
Can I comment on that? I'm sorry, but your point about equity and the white screen that you just put up, look who's not here in equity and who cannot afford to come. And that was what I was going to say when the question and answer was coming around, and you never made it over here. But the white screen coming back up is really important, because who's not in this museum, who needs to see this exhibit.
right, so I actually feel really bad because we still have like a time limit for this program, but these conversations at Newfields and in Indianapolis are going to continue. We're not going to end this conversation here. And so I just wanted to call out, if some of you couldn't hear the audience member, it's reminding us that I brought up this white slide talking about white supremacy. Here it is. Newfields is hovering over us sometimes, but we're really here, hopefully, to break down those barriers. And I really want to thank the Looking Glass Alliance members for those really powerful answers to that really thoughtful question. I think it's an amazing call for us to move forward to make Newfields a better museum for our community. So I really wanted to thank everyone, Bobby, Jordan, King, Nasreen, Tatiana, and then also Michael and Tasha for being here. And I also really wanted to thank all of you. It was really amazing to hear all of the Looking Glass Alliance members talk about their appreciation for you being here, because Newfields can't be Newfields without people like you. So thank you so much for being here, and let's all give the LGA and Newfield staff an amazing applause. And the conversations will continue in April 2023 when the galleries open. So please come back. We look forward to continuing this.